Hello everyone, and welcome to the 245th episode of Analyzing Evil, featuring our patron and member pick for September 2025, Megatron from the G1 cartoon continuity of Transformers. So the patron who suggested Megatron to be covered wanted me to cover a few different iterations of him in this video. But when I looked into how much work that would entail, I learned something very interesting about the Transformers franchise that I wasn't aware of before: how expansive it is. For whatever reason, when I was a kid, I never had the opportunity to watch the original Transformers cartoon, and I never really got into the franchise outside of watching a few of the live-action movies. And I was under the impression that there were just a few cartoon series in this franchise. But oh, how wrong I was. So after speaking with the patron who made the suggestion about what to do here, they decided that it's probably best that I start at the beginning, and so that's what I did. And that's why we'll exclusively be talking about Megatron as he appears in the Generation 1 cartoon in this video. There are other versions of his character from this continuity, like the one we receive in the comic books, but because it would have taken me an inordinate amount of time to research them all for this video, we'll only be sticking to what we're given about Megatron in the cartoon, and more specifically, the US version of it, because the Japanese version of the show went in another direction after the original series had concluded in the US. With all that in mind, let me know down below if you'd like me to cover more iterations of Megatron. And as you could probably tell, this video ended up being rather short, even though there are 3 seasons of this show and a movie to pick through. And the reason for that is because as evil as Megatron is, his character is relatively simple due to the fact that this iteration of his character is one of those classic mustache-twirling villains who are typically evil for the sake of being evil. And you'll see what I mean when we start talking about him in just a minute. Also, as you might have already noticed as well, I've ditched my usual way of speaking to you all in this episode, as I've chosen to use my regular speaking voice for this video. Why? Well, it's no secret that a lot of people are under the impression that the voice I use in this video is AI generated, and there are plenty more who just don't like the way I speak. I know a lot of you do, but I've come to wonder if dropping my narration voice is something people might want me to do. And so I've chosen to do just that in this video to see how all of you feel about it. So let me know down below which version of me you prefer. And with all that being said, we're going to start talking about Megatron in just a moment. But you know what? Maybe this evil robot in disguise would have been less evil if he got some uninterrupted sleep. Something that's a bit hard to do when you're in Megatron's line of work, which is where our sponsor for this video, Manta Sleep, comes into play. Everyone needs a proper rest, even a Decepticon, and it's hard to get that rest if you're disrupted by too much light creeping into your sleeping area. But with Manta, that problem is completely eliminated. Manta offers 8 different styles of sleep masks that offer all types of sleepers the assistance they need in making their dreaming hours as peaceful as possible. All of which feature unparalleled adjustability, a premium feel, and pro-nap movement that can soothe your eyes as you protect them if you choose their steam or cool masks, or even your ears with the sound mask and its built-in Bluetooth headphones, which is the one I have right here that I can't sleep without now that I've experienced just how impactful protecting my eyes is when I sleep. Manta's selection and quality are hard to beat, and I encourage you to browse their website and pick through all the different features of the mask they offer to find the one that best suits your needs, as no matter what your sleep schedule is, I guarantee a mask for Manta Sleep will make your waking and dreaming worlds infinitely better. So if you're like me, and the slightest sounds and tiniest pinpricks of light disturb your slumber, head over to mantasleep.com and use the code VIOLET at checkout to get 10% off your order and enhance your sleeping experience today. Thank you Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. Now without further ado, let's begin. A long time ago, a race of beings known as the Quintessence ruled over the factory planet of Cybertron and eventually created the first Transformers, and they constructed 2 lines of them: the Autobots, which were to be used as consumer goods, and the Decepticons, who were to be used as military hardware. After suffering under Quintessence rule as slaves for quite some time though, the Autobots rebelled and drove the Quintessence from Cybertron, beginning the golden age of Cybertron. And for a time, the robots lived in harmony, but this did not last. The Autobots sought a peaceful existence, and the Decepticons desired conquest, and so war began between the two, with the Autobots inventing the art of transforming in order to one-up their Decepticon foes through stealth in the face of their superior power. But in time, the Decepticons learned to transform as well, which led to the creation of Megatron and his establishment of a dictatorial regime on Cybertron. However, after millions of years of conflict, Cybertron's resources were all but depleted, and so the Autobots decided to leave their home in order to find new sources of energy and perhaps even a new home. Needing energy as well though, Megatron chose to pursue the Autobots in the hopes of capitalizing on any energy sources they discovered and to destroy them in the process, which led to their arrival on Earth 4 million years before this story begins, and their eventual awakening after a crash forced them all offline in the first episode of this show. And it's once Megatron's awakened that we're treated to his overarching goal in this story: to pillage the Earth for its resources, or anywhere else for that matter, so he can replenish Cybertron's stores of energy, destroy the Autobots once and for all, and continue his plan to eventually rule over the universe. Now, why does Megatron want to rule the universe? Well, because he's evil and he likes power. That's it. Those are the reasons why Megatron is evil, which are the shallowest motivations a villain can have for doing what they do. However, that doesn't mean Megatron is a bad character. Far from it. As I said in the intro, the mustache-twirling villain archetype is without a doubt the most simple. These characters are usually evil for the sake of it, and their personalities and motivations typically revolve around bombastic and devious speeches laying out their plans to gather immense wealth or power, a subsequent bungling of those plans as the heroes they go up against thwart them time and time again, and a healthy dose of maniacally evil laughter. And Megatron is a classic example of this type of character. So when you're exposed to a villain like this in any given story, their motivations end up being the weakest parts of their characters. And when looking at villains one might consider to be the greatest out there, it's usually the case that their motivations are one of the strongest aspects of their characters alongside their personalities, as the two are heavily influenced by the other. That also means that their personality ends up being weak as well, or perhaps more appropriately, rather one note. That being said, a one-note personality does have its merits, and with characters like Megatron, the allure that the complexity of a more intricate character has is replaced by the allure of their persona, gravitas, and humor. Megatron, though operating with only one outrageously evil goal in mind, is a delight to watch in action. He's a being who's willing to destroy entire galaxies and even the universe itself if it means he gets what he wants, that being ultimate power. In Megatron's mind, every other being in existence, including his Decepticons, are inferior to him, and thus all who live are relegated to either pawns or slaves when they come under his control. He constantly insults his subordinates and quarrels with them, and he shows absolutely no mercy or regard for his enemies or those who rebel against him in any way. Quips and jabs are as much a part of Megatron's arsenal as his signature fusion cannon is when dealing with his enemies, and he can be as cruel and brutal with his words as he can be with a weapon. Even after Megatron is transformed into Galvatron, things don't really change all too much. In fact, his previous devilish traits are only amplified to make him more cruel, unstable, and megalomaniacal than he had been prior. So Megatron is supremely evil, a bot who will never stop pursuing power for power's sake until the entire universe is within his grasp. And though this is all there really is to this version of Megatron's character, as I said earlier, that doesn't make him a bad one. There's no problem with the story being as morally black and white as the G1 Transformers cartoon is. Yes, the sinister complexity of many great villains and the stories we find them in can be thought-provoking and emotional experiences when witnessing them. But what a series like this offers is something we all need from time to time, some good old-fashioned fun. The Autobots are good, and the Decepticons are evil, and there's really no variation to be found in those designations. You will occasionally find Autobots like the Aerial Bots wondering if Megatron is as bad as their compatriots have made him seem, and the odd Decepticon might forge an alliance with the Autobots temporarily to further their goals. But on the whole, every episode in this series, including the film, have the exact same plot. Megatron will either appear to try and acquire some new source of energy to turn into energon cubes, or to destroy the Autobots to do the same thing, and the Autobots will then find out about his latest scheme, and then they'll defeat him. But that's what's so fun about this show. You know going into every episode of this series that you're going to see giant robots transforming into various gadgets and vehicles, who then engage in spectacular battles with other robots who do the same thing, along the way getting in more than a few laughs as they belt out heartwarming or insidious one-liners and puns. And so as basic as Megatron might be, he and other mustache-twirling villains like him are in their own right great villains. Villains who you always look forward to seeing in the next episode to find out what harebrained scheme they're going to come up with next, and how that scheme is going to be undone by their foes. And despite their simplicity, they end up being characters who are so stylish and delightfully evil that one can feel comfortable offering zero sympathy for them and loving them all the same. And make no mistake, as over-the-top as characters like Megatron can be, they're also as evil as they come, as Megatron would have seen the destruction of everyone and everything, so long as he could sit on the highest throne in the universe and rule over the ashes. Though as is often the case in stories like these, Megatron will rarely actually harm anyone, with his plans usually being thwarted before that can happen, as the hero's plot armor shields them from anything he can throw at them. Now, I know this was rather brief, but that, my friends, was all that I felt needed to be said about this version of Megatron, a villain's villain who deserves a high spot on the list of greatest villains of his type. And though there might not be too much to say about him and his character, I for one think he's still a fantastic character that anyone could appreciate watching as he unleashes his megalomaniacal powers and delighting in every little thing that makes him so evil. And if you haven't had a chance to watch this wonderful series yet, as chance would have it, you can actually watch it for free here on YouTube, so I'll put a link to the first episode down in the description, so you too can get in on all the transformative fun. Now as always, I thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Analyzing Evil, and I hope you've enjoyed. But what are your thoughts on Megatron? Did I miss anything? Let me know down below and leave a suggestion for a villain you'd like to see featured while you're at it. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. A big thank you to all of my subscribers, my patrons, my members, anyone who's decided to honor me with a super thank, and especially Elijah Kai VA, our Dark Lord channel member, and a most vile thank you to those whose names you're seeing on screen now. Join the channel's Discord server and subreddit to interact with myself and the community, and follow me on the social media platforms listed below to keep up with the channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon.